All right. Oh, we're back. Okay, so I'm using my phone now. I don't know what happened, but my internet connection went down, which is very frustrating. All right, so let me reshare my screen, and maybe I'll stop my video since I don't have a lot of bandwidth through my phone. Okay, so a class variable is a variable that's shared. For example, for students, everybody might share the fact that you have to take, say, at least 1.5 credits to be considered full-time. Um, whereas each person has their own GPA. It's the difference between a class and a variable. An instance is an individual item of that class, right? So each student is a class, is an instance of the student class. Instantiation is what we use that term when we create a new thing of that class. We instantiate it. Remember, we saw how we used the name of the class to create something of that class. It's called instantiation. And a method, of course, is a function within a class. It's a function that operates on objects in that class. And of course, the object is a unique instance. So really an instance and an object are essentially the same thing. Now, so let's look at a new class here. You guys can open this up and play around with this. So here's an object, and notice it has a main and it has an employee.py. So let's look at employee.py. This is a class, employee, a common base class for all employees. And then we have this variable out here, like Avogadro's number, which is going to be used to keep track of how many employees we have. So that's not a variable that's about a particular employee. That's a variable that's about all the employees. And then inside of our constructor, we have an init, a way to make an employee called init. And when we make an employee, we have to give them a name and we have to give them a salary. That's required. And so we pass in local variables name and salary, and we put them into this object. And whenever we want to refer to its object's own self, we use the term self. Now notice, every time we add a new employee, what we're going to do is we're going to take employee.employee count, and we're going to add one to it. And this is going to be our way of keeping track of how many employees we have, right? So this is a number that will change over time, but it's not an instance variable. It's an object, it's a class variable. Then we want to be able to have a function where we're going to print how many total employees we have. And of course we use employee instead of self because it's a class variable. And then we have a function to display an employee, and we just print their name and we print their salary. And their name is in self.name and their salary is in salary.self. So we want to use this class. So over here in main, I say from employee, because employee.py contains the class. Import employee. It turns out that the name of the file is the same as the name of the class. We commonly do that. We don't have to do that, but we commonly do. And so here we're going to create 3 employees. First, I'm going to create employee Bill Yakas, and I'm going to give him a salary of $50,000. And I'm going to display that employee, and then I'm going to go ahead and display the count. And here I'm going to, now I'm saying employee 1 count, but it actually doesn't matter which instance I give it because I'm not asking for a particular employee's count. I'm asking for all the employees' count. Then I do the same thing with Lizzie Randolph, give her a salary, and then I'm going to display information about her. And then I'm going to do the same thing with Lester Snickley. And then I'm going to display information. And then I'm going to finally display all the employees. In fact, I can say employee count. I'm not sure why I said employee two. It turns out you can do either. You can, when you want to play a class variable, you can either give an instance or you can give the class name. So that's actually good to see. So let's run this now. So here we add Bill Yakis, and now we have a total of employees of 3. We add Lizzie Randolph, and we have a total employees of 2. And we add Lester Schnickley, and now we have 3 employees. So that's a class. Now let's go back here. Again, employee count keeps track of the number of employees. The first method init allows us to make a new employee. And let's see if we can create a couple more employees. What do we need to do? Well, let's try this. Over in main, in fact, let me fork this because I don't want to, oops. I don't want to mess up the original. Oops, I don't know what I just did there. Fork, where's the fork thing at? Oh, right here, fork. Lost track of it for a second there. So let's actually simplify this a little bit. And well, we could actually, yeah, let's simplify this. Let's get rid of that. Let's get rid of this. Ah, my system is running slow again. Sorry. There we go. So I can add some, now let's see if I can add some additional employees. This is actually 2. I should have made that 3. That was a bug in there, shoot. So let's make another employee. Let's make an new employee, we can call them anything we want, is equal to, we can make a new employee, right? And let's say we're going to make an employee Cindy Rogers. Yeah. And right, we're going to give her a good salary of $100,000, right? And we could add another employee, new employee 2, Sue Smith, and we'll give her $85,000, right? So now if we run this, of course, we're not printing out a lot, but we see that we now have 5 employees. And in fact, I could print out the number of employees anytime I want. And if I print it out after Lester Schnickley, and then I print it again out after the 2 new employees, we see 3, and then we see 5, right? So that I can print out any employee I want, right? I can say, you know, new employee dot display employee, right? That's my one of my methods. And we run that, and we print out Cindy Rogers, and she has a salary of $100,000. Right? So we can, once we've made an employee, we can make as many as we want. In fact, a cool thing that we could do something like this. I could make an array or a list, and I could instead of putting the employees in their own variables, I could actually say employees dot append, and then basically make a list of employees. So for each of these employees, let's just put them onto a list. So now I've made a list of employees, right? I've just appended them to a list. Now, just for the fun of it, let's get rid of this. Let's see what happens if we print out that list. EMPS. It's actually not going to look very nice because it turns out if you print out an object, it just gives you a reference to that object. So what we'd like to do, what we really want to do is print out each of the employees. So what we could do is I could do a for I in len employees, right? So for each employee, I could do a display, I could do a imps sub I, right? That's going to pick the ith employee, and I can display them. I don't want to display count, I want to display employee. And then I'll print out the number of employees. So let's run this. On line 11.
Range.
Oh, it's range, right, thank you. You never get used to range. No other programming language in the world uses range, so. There we go. Now, it didn't print anything out because I forgot to put parentheses after that. There we go. So now I can print out all of my employees. Isn't that cool? I have a list of objects. I have objects in a list, and these objects are employees. And I can add more employees anytime I want. I could even put in a loop where I say, you know, name equals enter name of new employee. Right, so I could do that, and then what I could do is I could say while while the length of name is greater than 0. So in other words, as long as they enter a name, I'll say Sal is equal to, oops, I don't know what I did here. Input. So I'm going to enter the name of an employee, and then I'm going to get the salary. I'll say int input. I'm going to keep it short, so I'll say sal, right? And then I'm going to get the name, get the salary, and then I'll make a new employee. So I'll say, how do I make a new employee? I'm going to say, I'll call it new is equal to employee, and I'm going to pass it the name and the salary that I just made, right? And then let's take and append that to my employees list. Okay, then what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask for this again and go around again. But let's do this actually after we do that. Let's go ahead and print the employee.count, so we keep track of how many employees there are every single time we add an employee. So again, what we're doing is we're asking for a name. If it's not null, if we type anything in, we're going to ask for a salary. We're going to create a new employee. We're going to add them to our employees list. We're going to say how many employees they are, and then we're going to ask if they want to enter another new one. So we're going to start out, of course, with 5 employees. So let's add, Bilbo and a salary of 25,000, and we got an error. Okay, so line 15.
Want to append, right?
Yes, append. Sorry, dot append dot new. So let's try that. So Bilbo and $25,000 says now we have 6 employees. You know, Sam, Wise, and we can only pay him $12,000, right? And you know, Kelly, and we'll pay her, you know, $88,000. Now, so notice every time number of employees goes up, hit enter because I am done, and it shows me a list of all my employees, including those new ones I added. Isn't that cool? So we can make lists of objects. Now let's go back here. Let's modify this object so that it also keeps track of their position, like whether they're like maybe a programmer or a director or, you know, the CEO or an accountant, right? So we want to be able to do that. Where would we do that at? If we wanted to, where would we start adding the ability, enhancing this employee class?
In the class?
Yeah, we go into the class itself, right? And so what we can do is we can go into the init function and we can add a new thing, right? We can say position, and then I can say self.position is equal to position, right? So they're going to pass in a position. Now, of course, if to make this work, I better, and make it nice, let's go ahead and add here position colon and print out self.position. Okay, let me get rid of this. All right. And I actually don't need these spaces because I want it to be a tighter output. Okay, so now, of course, if I run it, it's not going to work. And does anybody know why it didn't work? Let's look at this output. It says type error, missing one required positional argument, position. We didn't tell it. We have to go back here, and now we have to give them a position. So we could make Bill a programmer. We could make Cindy a designer. And we could make Lester a plumber. Okay. We got different. Now here we can make Cindy a CEO. And we could make Sue Smith a accountant, right? And I put an extra quote in there. Okay, that's kind of cool. So of course, then now we are going to have to fix this because we need to add those new things. So I could say, I don't know why I put that in there. I do know why I put that in there, but I'm not going to talk about that. Position. And then we could say position is, well, I'll just call it pause to keep it short, is equal to enter name of new position.
Should go after salary before new.
Right, it needs to go, oh yeah, I put these in the wrong place. I need to take this. Oh, sorry. need to take this code and put it after the salary code, right? So after we get their salary, we're going to get their position. So let's see if this works. Enter name of employee, you know, Ralph, and salary, $30,000. Position, well, I clearly did something wrong here. Huh.
The position input is asking for the name.
Oh, yeah, enter. Oh, right. I don't know why I did a print position. I should just, so stupid. Okay. I don't know what world I was living in when I did that, but it wasn't this one. Okay, so we asked for the salary and asked for the position. Now let's try it. You know, Billy, salary 23,000. You know, intern, and we got an error. So the problem is, of course, when I made the employee, I forgot to pass the position into it. So now let's try it again. Ralph, 23,000, and position is intern, and you know, Michelle, and salary 77,000, and another programmer. So there we go, right? So we added to this class, and so isn't this kind of cool? I mean, basically we have a way of keeping track of employees, and we can update this to add new features. Now, one of the things that we could have done so that we wouldn't have had to change anything, I could have made the position an optional parameter, unspecified, right? Then if we come over here, I can actually remove this from some of these, and it'll still work because, you know, I'll just put in garbage here. Notice that if I don't give a position, it just picks whatever I put here, and what I put here is unspec for unspecified. So you can make some parameters optional, which is kind of nice, because if you're going to update an employee, make a new type of employee, you can do something like this, and then you don't have to change any of the code that was using it before you added that new thing. All right. So we added the position constructor. We modified display employee to print this new attribute. Oh, well, we already did this, although it said to do it with intern for the position. I made it unspec. Now, what if we want to write a method called give raise, and we give it a percentage, and it gives an employee a raise, right? So how would we do that? Well, we need to go back over to here, over to employee, and we need to add a new method, right? So we can go to the bottom of our employee thing, and we can say def give raise self. We always have to do self, right? And then we could give, you know, amount, and that's supposed to be a percentage, right? And so what are we doing here? Well, what we can do is, it's going to be self. We can say self dot salary is equal to self dot salary plus self dot salary times amount, because amount is going to be a fraction, right? Like 0.2 or something like that, because then they get a 20% raise, right? So we want to be able to give raise 0.10% means they get a 10% raise. So now we should be able to give people raises, right? Now I'm trying to think how to do that in this context. What I could do is after we do all of this, what we could do is, let's just try this. Let's just say print, or let's just say give, or employee, let's just pick one, sub 2, which is who? That apparently is Lizzie. Let's give Lizzie, oops, dot give raise, right? And we're going to give her a 20% raise. And then let's employees sub 2, again, we want to give this, let's print, let's display that employee, which hopefully should,
So you might want to use a square bracket for it.
that might help, wouldn't it? I think I was going to do that, but you know, that's debatable. Yeah. All right, thank you. So let's run this. And of course, it's going to come up. Let's just not do any new employees. So notice it prints all of our employees, says total of 5, and then, oh, I did 2, which was the third one. Lester Snickley went from 35,000 to 42,000, right? I could actually go through and give everybody a raise, right? I could make a loop, just like I made this loop here. I could make a loop, because I'm going to be kind, and I'm going to give everybody, for every employee, I'm going to give them a 20% raise. And then I'm going to go ahead and print that employee out after I give them a raise. Oops. All right, so this is going to say for every employee, give that employee a raise, and then display that employee. Okay, so let's, and we're not going to enter any new employees right now, so let's just do that. So here's all our employees printed out, and here they are with their new salaries, right? Bill Yakis went from 50 to 60. Lizzie went from 75 to 90. Lester went from 35 to 42. Cindy Rogers went all the way up to 120K. And Sue Smith went up to 102. So that's kind of cool, right? Right, and we did all that in here, right? We gave the ability to add employees a raise. And this totally makes sense because we have this class of thing called employees. We want to be able to make new employees. We want to know how many employees we have. We want to be able to display employees. And we want to be able to give our employees a raise, right? Now, what if we wanted to give every employee an employee ID? And then we commonly do this. We do this at Kenyon, right? I have an employee ID, you have a student ID. We give that automatic. That's a common thing. Can you think of how we might do that? And there's a hint here. It says we could use the employee count to make the ID. right? So what we could do is when we create a new employee, what we could do is we could make it a self.id. And let's do this. Instead of making it start from 0, let's do something funky like this. Let's say is equal to, 10,000 plus employee count, right? So that way it seems more like an ID, right? And so now when we are printing people out, let's change display employee to also show their ID. We'll do that as the very first thing. We could say print ID : comma self dot ID, comma. Okay, so what we've done here is instead of passing an ID in, we're creating our own ID by looking at the employee count. So let's run this and see what happens. Well, it crashes. So on line 9, it says, what did I do? Plus employee count. Oh, I didn't say employee count. Somebody should have warned me, right? So what I want to do is I want to add the employee count to 10,000 to give them an ID. So now we come over here and run this, and we see that let me clear this so that we're uncluttered. Okay, so now we see that Bill Yakis is employee 10,000, Lizzie Randolph 10,001, Lester Snickley 10,002, and so on. So we're assigning to each employee. Using this class variable, we're creating a unique ID for each employee, right? In fact, I could even get fancier, because, like, let's say, well, I want to really kind of spread these things out, so we'll say ×3, right? Just to make it look more random-ish, right? I could do other things, but we'll try that. So now 1,000, 10,003, 10,006, and so on, right? So I can create, all right. Write a program that creates a list of employees. We already did that. Well, we didn't do this. We could add an employee, list employee, delete employee. That's an interesting thing to do. Do I want to do that, or I want to go on and make another class? I could make another class and called a company, and a company, let's do that. And a company, let's say a company has a name and address and a list of employees. Well, we already know how to make a list of employees. And then I want to be able to create a new company. I want to be able to add an employee to a company. I want to be able to print all the information about the company. I want to be able to fire an employee by their ID. Could I do that? Well, I can, right? So what I could do, let's make a new class. What I'm going to do is make a new file and call it company.py, right? And inside of company.py, I'm going to make class company, right? And so class company is going to be like this. I should probably give it something like this. A company class. And now we could put a class variable in there, but let's not do that now. I can do, and I could pass it at self, comma, name, comma, what was the other thing I wanted to give a company? An address, name, address. And when we create a company, we give it employees later, right? So I can give it name and company. And I guess it would help if I said def here. So I'm making a new initializer. I'm making a new constructor. And then I can say self.name is equal to name. So self.address is equal to address, right? What else did I want to do with this company? I want to be able to add employees. So I can define and add employee. And literally what I'm going to do is I'm going to pass it an employee. And of course, I better have an employee list. So up here, I could say self.employees is equal to an empty list, because we start out with the company not having any employees. And then all I have to do is I can say self.employees.append employee. It's that simple. I can add an employee to this company. Not sure why it's giving me an error there. Oh, self.employees.
There's no self.
Right. You have to do that, right? So let's then make a print to the company and print, we'll just call it print, and we don't pass it anything, and we want it to print the company. Well, what will it do? We can say print name, comma, address. We'll keep this simple since we're running out of time. And then we could go through, of course, it's got to be self. So I can print out my own name and address, and then I can go through my list of employees for E in self.employees, E dot. Now, notice it doesn't know about employees yet, because what we're going to have to do is just like we did in main, if we want to use employees in company, we're going to have to put this line up at the top to tell it that we want to be able to use employees, right? And so now it still doesn't know what that is an employee, but it will work if we put this together right. So I can say display employee. So the print will print the name and address of the company, and then for every employee, it will print the employee. Now, we go back here to main. Oops, I don't know, I didn't mean to do that. Stop. Okay, let's go back to main. We can leave a lot of this code in there, but let's get rid of some of this stuff. We'll comment this out for now. So let's do this. Actually, we should. What's the command that just comments everything out? Does anybody remember? There's a keystroke you can do to make everything.
Command 3. Oh,
I think it's backslash or just
Okay.
slash.
It's slash, command slash.
Commands. What's forward slash or backslash?
Forward.
Ah, there we go. So now we want to, from company, import company. Of course, it was capital C. From company, import company. So now what I should be able to do is I should be able to make a company for, sorry. So I'm going to say my comp is equal to company sub ACME, Acme, just a nice generic name, and then the address 123 Pine Street. That's good enough. Okay, so then what we want to be able to do is add employees to this company. So let's actually go here and steal this code that we were using earlier. And how do you uncomment things?
Same keystroke.
What's that?
I think it's the same command and slash.
There we go. So, oops, I didn't get enough. I want to get this. I don't know why I had this here. So what I can do is I can make some code to enter the name of a new employee, just like before, blah, 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 make a new employee, but instead of appending it to the list, what I can do is, and actually we don't really need this anymore. I mean, we could have that, that would be dandy, but for right now, let's just do this. We can say my comp dot add employee, and I'm going to say new. All right, so this should allow me to add as many people as I want to that company, and then when I'm done, I should be able to do a my comp dot print, and it'll print all the employees in that company because we only got 1 minute, so let's see if this works. Print name of new employee, Jim, salary 50,000, position programmer, Cindy, salary 70,000, position accountant, Bill, salary 10,000, and a lawn care. All right, so now if I hit enter, notice it prints the ID numbers of all names and information about these employees. And so now one way of thinking this is company is like a container class because company is a class that contains a list of employees. All right, we're done. I'm going to put this in the chat. I will also put a link to this activity on the wiki, on the web page, so that you can play around with this. So hopefully the whole point of this was to get you to the point where you can do this next lab, okay? So that's it. We're done. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.